I want to tell you about the morning I woke up and he was gone. Not metaphorically. Not in the gradual emotional sense of losing someone slowly over years. I mean, I woke up at 6:30 in the morning in our apartment in Chicago, Illinois, reached across the bed the way I had reached across that bed every morning for 4 years. And the side was cold. The closet was half empty. His phone charger was gone. And on the kitchen counter, held down by my coffee mug, the mug he had given me 2 birthdays ago, the one with the chipped handle that I had kept because it was from him, was a note. For sentences. For sentences to end 4 years. My name is Rachel. I am 35 years old. And 3 years ago, when I was 32 and had just received a diagnosis that frightened me more than I knew fear could reach, my partner of 4 years picked up his things and left. Not because he stopped loving me. At least that is not what the note said. The note said he was not able to handle what was happening. That he needed space. That he hoped I would understand. I did not understand. I am going to tell you the story of what happened. Of who Daniel was and who I thought he was. Of what his leaving cost me and what it, unexpectedly, slowly through the hardest months of my life, gave me. And of the karma that arrived, patient as always, exactly when it was supposed to. Daniel and I met when I was 27. He was 30, which felt significant at the time in the way of small age gaps that seem larger when you are still in your 20s. He was handsome in a quiet, understated way. Not the kind of man who owned the room, but the kind who made the room feel more comfortable. He had a warmth about him that I trusted immediately, because I am a person who reads warmth accurately and whose instincts about people have mostly served me well. Mostly. We moved into together at 18 months. It felt right. Not the rushed right of people who are afraid the moment will pass, but the considered right of 2 people who had taken their time and arrived at a conclusion they were both confident in. I loved him in the particular way you love the first person who has made you feel completely safe. And he had. For the first 2 years, Daniel had made me feel completely safe. He was steady and consistent, and when things were difficult, my mother's health scare in our first year, the job I lost, and the 3 difficult months that followed, he was there. Present. The kind of present that does not require credit because it simply shows up. I had been, in those years, the same for him. His father's death in our second year. The job transition that took longer than expected. The period of anxiety that he managed quietly but that I knew about and that I absorbed beside him without making it larger than he needed it to be. We had been, I believe, the kind of couple that shows up for each other. I had half the data. I had seen him show up when I was strong enough to show up back. What I did not know, what I could not know until the circumstances required it, was what he would do when I could not show up back at all. When I was the one who needed everything and had nothing to return. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday in October. I am not going to specify what it was, the specific condition is less important than what it meant, which was serious. Requiring treatment. Changing life in ways that I was still processing when the doctor was still speaking. The kind of news that arrives and immediately divides your life into before and after, and you are still standing in the before while everything around you has already shifted into the after. I called Daniel from the parking lot of the medical building. He answered immediately. He said all the right things. I want to be fair to him about this. His initial response was everything a person could hope for. He was there when I got home. He held me. He said we would figure it out together. That evening I believed him. The week that followed was when the change began. Not dramatically. It was subtle enough that I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. A quality of distance in him that had not been there before. A tendency to stay later at work than usual. A phone he checked more than he had. A quality of distraction in the evenings when I most needed presence, that he explained as stress from work and that I accepted because accepting it was easier than naming what I feared it was. 3 weeks after the diagnosis, I asked him directly, "Are you okay? You seem far away." He said, "I'm just processing. This is a lot for both of us." I heard, "I am here." What he meant, I understand now, was, I am already leaving. The processing he was describing was not the processing of someone working out how to show up. It was the processing of someone working out how to exit in a way that would cause the least immediate damage to his own self-image. I did not know that then. I gave him the space he said he needed. And 6 weeks after the diagnosis, on a night when I had gone to sleep exhausted from a week of treatment that had been harder than the first week and had needed him in a way I had not needed anyone since I was a child, I woke up to a cold bed and 4 sentences on the kitchen counter. I read the note 3 times. And then I sat down on the kitchen floor. Not the same kitchen floor as a year from now when I would understand things I did not yet understand, but the floor of the life I had before, the one that had just ended without my permission, and I read it a 4th time. And I thought, this is not possible. And then I thought, this is the note. It is in his handwriting. It is sitting under my coffee mug. This is what happened. The months that followed were the hardest of my life. Not because I was alone, I have been alone before and alone is manageable. But because I was alone while sick, which is a specific and particular kind of difficult that I had not encountered and that I would not wish on anyone. Treatment is hard when you have someone. It is a different category of hard when you don't. The appointments that require a driver. The evenings when the side effects arrive and the apartment is very quiet. The specific 3 a.m. quality of lying in the dark when your body is doing something difficult, and there is no one to tell and no one to hear, and the silence has a weight that the daylight hours don't. I got through it. I want to say that plainly and without drama. I got through it. Not gracefully, not without cost, not without some nights that I hope I never repeat. But I got through it. With help from places I had not expected. My colleague Janelle, who discovered what was happening not because I told her but because she paid attention, and who began appearing with lunch in a way that was casual enough to preserve my dignity and consistent enough to matter. Who asked specific questions rather than general ones. Not how are you but did you sleep, not let me know if you need anything but I'm coming over Thursday, is chicken soup okay? My neighbor Mrs. Patterson, 74 years old, who had known me for 2 years as the polite young woman across the hall and who, in the months of my treatment, became someone I did not know I needed. She knocked on my door one evening with a casserole and the information that she made too much food for one person and would appreciate my help with it. We both understood the fiction. She came back the following Tuesday. And the Tuesday after that. And my sister Diane, who lived 3 hours away in Indianapolis and who drove to Chicago every other weekend for 4 months without being asked and without making it a larger thing than it needed to be. Who slept on my couch and accompanied me to appointments and watched terrible television with me in the evenings and never, not once, said anything that required me to be grateful in a performed way. These people did not replace Daniel. But they showed me something that his leaving, paradoxically, had made possible for me to see. I was someone worth showing up for. Not because I was useful. Not because I could give something in return. But simply because I was a person who mattered to people who had chosen to love me. I had not known how to fully receive that before. I learned in the hardest classroom available. 8 months after Daniel left, I was in remission. I want to sit with that word for a moment because it is a word I had feared I might not reach and that arrived with a quality of relief I had not experienced before. Remission. The treatment had worked. The body had done what it needed to do. The after that I was living in had room for a future in a way I had not been certain it would. I sat in the doctor's office after she told me, and I thought about Daniel. Not with anger. By this point the anger had done what it needed to do and had settled into something quieter and, I think, more honest. I thought about him with the particular sadness of someone who has understood something about another person that the other person has not yet understood about themselves. Daniel had left because he was afraid. Not because he was cruel. He is not a cruel person. I knew him for 4 years and cruelty was not in him. He left because the fear of losing me had been more than he could sit with, and rather than sit with it and be present through it, which is what love requires, what showing up means, he had removed himself from the situation. He had left to protect himself from the pain of watching me be sick. And in doing so, he had left me to be sick alone. I do not think he understood the cost of that at the time. I think he told himself a story in which the leaving was understandable, perhaps even necessary, in which his inability to handle the situation was a character limitation to be acknowledged rather than a choice to be examined. I think in his most honest moments he knows the story was wrong. But that is his reckoning to have, not mine to give him. My reckoning was different. My reckoning was the discovery, in the 8 months alone, of a version of myself I had not fully met before. The version that wakes up alone in a cold apartment and figures out how to get herself to appointments. That calls Diane not to ask her to come but to say, "I need you this weekend, can you come?" That learns to receive Janelle's lunches and Mrs. Patterson's casseroles without deflecting the care with the particular self-minimizing humor of someone who does not believe she deserves direct love. That version of me was strong in a way I had not known I was strong. Not because I had no choice, I had some choice at every moment. I could have collapsed more completely. I could have demanded more from the people who showed up. I could have used the situation to confirm the worst things I was tempted to believe about my own worth. I chose differently. And in the choosing, I found something Daniel had inadvertently given me by leaving. The knowledge of what I was made of. When no one who was supposed to be there was there. And I was still there. Still myself. Still whole. Daniel contacted me 14 months after he left. Not immediately. Not with the urgency of someone who has recognized immediately that they made a catastrophic error. With the particular careful timing of someone who has waited until they believed enough time had passed for the contact to be received without the full force of what it followed. A message. Polite, genuine, without excuses. I will give him that. He said he had heard I was in remission. He said he was glad. He said he had thought about what he had done every day since and that he understood now what it had cost me, and that he was sorry in a way he did not have language adequate to express. He said, I was a coward. There is no other word for it. I read the message twice. And I thought about what I wanted to say. Not immediately, I sat with it for 3 days, which felt right. Not to punish him with the waiting, but because what I wanted to say mattered and I did not want to say the wrong thing. I wrote back. I said, I know you're sorry. I believe that you are. And I forgive you, not because what you did was acceptable, but because carrying the weight of it serves neither of us. I have built something in the time since you left that I am genuinely proud of. And part of what I built it from was the understanding of who I am when everything else is gone. You gave me that. Accidentally and at considerable cost, but you gave it to me. So thank you. And goodbye. I did not hear from him again. I did not expect to. But there is something else I want to tell you about karma. 6 months after the remission, I met a man named Christopher at a friend's dinner party. He was a pediatric nurse, the kind of person who has chosen a profession that requires daily compassion and who brings that compassion home with him without effort because it is simply who he is. We talked for 3 hours at that dinner table. He called the next day. We have been together for 14 months. Last month I had a minor health scare. A test that came back unusual and that required a follow-up that turned out to be nothing. A week of uncertainty. Christopher was at every appointment. Not because I asked. Because he was there before I could ask, and when I said you don't have to come to all of them, he said, I know. I want to. I know. I want to. 4 words. The exact opposite of 4 sentences on a kitchen counter. This is what karma looks like. Not always the punishment of the one who wronged you. Sometimes the arrival of the one who gets it right. The karma in this story is not Daniel's suffering. I do not know what Daniel's life has been since he left. I hope, genuinely without irony, that he has done the reckoning his leaving required. That he has understood what he did and why, and that the understanding has changed something in him. Not for my sake. For his own and for whoever comes next. The karma in this story is Christopher. And Janelle's lunches. And Mrs. Patterson's casseroles on Tuesday evenings. And Diane on the couch every other weekend for 4 months. And the remission. And the version of Rachel who stood in the wreckage of the life she thought she was building and built something better from what remained. Karma is not only punishment. It is also, and I believe this more than I have ever believed anything, the return of what you deserve after you have been through what you did not deserve. I deserved someone who would stay. I got Daniel first. And then I got Christopher. And in the time between them, I got something neither of them gave me. I got myself. Fully. Completely. Without condition. And that, of everything, is the most important thing this story gave me. If you have been left, at your worst moment, by someone you trusted with your worst, I want to say something to you. Not a platitude. Not the comfortable insistence that everything happens for a reason, because I do not know if everything does and you deserve honesty more than comfort. But this. The person who left is not the verdict on your worth. They are the verdict on their courage. On their capacity. On the size of the love they were capable of offering. And that verdict is theirs to carry. Yours is different. Your verdict is written in every morning you woke up after they left and got yourself to where you needed to go. In every person who showed up when the wrong person didn't. In the particular, specific, destroyable knowledge of what you are made of, which you would not have had without the leaving, which is the most expensive and most essential education available. You survived. You are surviving. And on the other side of the surviving, in ways you cannot yet see and I cannot promise the timing of, is the person who will say, I know. I want to. Wait for that person. You have earned them. This has been Veravox. True voices. Real stories. Raw emotion. My name is Rachel. Last week, Christopher came to my appointment. He brought coffee. He knew how I take it.